Hello, dear story lovers. At the amount of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a huge series of special stories for you. Subscribe now. The sky was ablaze with streaks of color as the Zalorian spacecraft descended, its shimmering surface catching the light of Earth's sun. The ship was enormous, nearly the size of Manhattan, and its geometric edges gleamed with an unnatural perfection. It hovered silently over New York City, casting a long, ominous shadow across Central Park. Millions watched from their screens, and thousands had gathered in the park itself, nervously waiting for the first contact. The government had done its best to prepare, but nothing could have truly readied them for this moment. The Zalorians, an advanced species known for their technological might and enigmatic ways, had arrived. Their sudden appearance was heralded only by a cryptic transmission, "Prepare to witness." Jake Sullivan wasn't supposed to be in the park that day. A young biologist and animal behaviorist, Jake had been following the event like everyone else, glued to his television at his Brooklyn apartment. But something about the arrival struck a chord in him, a mix of curiosity and unease. He had to see it for himself. As the Zalorian ship lowered into the Earth's atmosphere, Jake grabbed his field notebook and made his way into the city. By the time Jake arrived at Central Park, the crowd was electric with nervous energy. Military personnel stood in a tense formation near the landing zone, their weapons trained on the shimmering craft. Then, with a low hum, a section of the alien ship opened, revealing the Zalorians. They emerged with an air of regality. Tall and willowy, their skin shimmered with a metallic sheen, shifting colors like oil on water. Their eyes glowed faintly, radiating intelligence. But the crowd's attention wasn't on the Zalorians for long. The Zalorians brought their beast. A low growl reverberated through the park as a massive creature emerged from the ship's interior. It was unlike anything Jake or anyone else had ever seen. The Varkin stood over 7 feet tall at the shoulder, its body a blend of sinewy muscle and sleek silver fur. Its glowing red eyes scanned the crowd, and its claws raked the ground as it paced. The air around it seemed to thrum with raw power. The Zalorians spoke in perfect English, their voices resonating like an eerie chorus. "Behold our greatest creation. This is the Varkin, the apex predator of our world. Witness and understand the strength of the Zalorian people." As if on cue, the Varkin let out an earth-shaking roar. The crowd screamed and scattered, chaos erupting as people fled in terror. Even the military personnel, frozen for a moment, began to retreat, their weapons shaking in their hands. Jake didn't move. He stood rooted to the spot, transfixed by the creature. He had seen fearsome predators before: lions, wolves, bears, but this was something else entirely. Yet as he watched, he noticed something in the Varkin's behavior. Its growl wasn't a battle cry, but a warning. It didn't immediately attack. It was assessing, waiting. Jake's instincts kicked in. He slowly stepped forward, careful not to make any sudden movements. The creature's glowing eyes locked onto him, and the crowd collectively held their breath. "What are you doing?" "Get back," a soldier shouted, but Jake ignored him. He kept his focus on the Varkin, speaking softly as if it could understand him. "You're not here to kill, are you? You're scared, too." The Varkin's ears twitched, a subtle but telling sign. Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of dried meat, something he often carried during his field work. He extended his hand, offering it to the beast. The Varkin hesitated, its nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the creature stepped closer. Its massive head loomed over Jake as it sniffed the treat, then gently took it from his hand. The roar of the crowd fell silent. The Varkin lowered its body slightly, its posture no longer aggressive. It tilted its head, watching Jake with an almost curious expression. The Zalorians, observing from their elevated platform, exchanged bewildered glances. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Jake reached out and placed a hand on the creature's fur. It was warm, its silver coat softer than he had expected. He smiled, his voice steady as he spoke. "You're not so scary, are you?" The Varkin responded by sitting back on its haunches, a sign of submission that no one, not even the Zalorians, had expected. Above, the Zalorian leaders stepped forward, their voice tinged with intrigue. "What is this human doing?" they murmured to their advisors. Jake turned, looking up at the aliens with a calm determination. "You thought you could scare us with your beast. But fear isn't the same as understanding." The crowd erupted into cheers, and the military lowered their weapons. The Zalorians, for the first time in their long history of interstellar conquest, were at a loss for words. And Jake Sullivan, a quiet biologist with a knack for reading animals, had just become humanity's unexpected ambassador. The moment Jake stood before the Varkin, the world seemed to pause. Millions of eyes around the globe were glued to screens, witnessing a scene that defied every expectation. The deadly predator, a creature that could rend steel with its claws, sat quietly before a human as if waiting for instruction. Jake could feel the eyes of the Zalorians on him, their metallic gazes filled with both astonishment and calculation. They were undoubtedly trying to decipher how a single human had pacified their deadliest creation. But Jake wasn't thinking about them, his focus was entirely on the Varkin. The creature was magnificent up close. Its fur seemed to shimmer with a liquid glow, and its glowing red eyes, though fearsome, held a depth that Jake couldn't ignore. There was intelligence behind them, not just animalistic instinct. Jake crouched slowly to meet the creature at eye level. "You're not a monster, are you?" Jake whispered, his voice barely audible. "You're just misunderstood." The Varkin tilted its head, a canine-like gesture that surprised Jake. It sniffed the air around him, its massive nostrils flaring. Slowly, Jake extended his hand again, this time empty. The creature leaned forward, its breath hot and steady, before nudging his palm gently with its nose. The crowd gasped. Behind Jake, the military and emergency personnel were frozen in place, unsure of what to do. The Zalorian leader, standing on an elevated platform near their ship, finally broke the silence. "Human," their voice echoed, resonating like a symphony of bells. "What is it you believe you are doing?" Jake straightened, never taking his eyes off the Varkin. "I'm doing what anyone should do when they meet something new. I'm listening." The Zalorian leader's head tilted, their expression unreadable. "Listening?" "The Varkin does not speak." "Not with words," Jake said, turning slightly toward the Zalorians. "But it communicates. You've trained it to be aggressive, but that's not its nature. It's not attacking because it doesn't want to." The crowd murmured in confusion. This was an alien predator. How could Jake possibly know its nature? But the Varkin's behavior supported his claim. It remained calm, sitting at his feet, its tail swishing slowly behind it like a contented house cat. The Zalorian leader's eyes narrowed, their tone taking on a sharp edge. "The Varkin is the pinnacle of genetic engineering. It is loyal only to us. This display is an anomaly." Jake frowned. "You created it, didn't you? You engineered it to be your weapon, but you didn't stop to understand it. This creature is more than just a tool, it's alive." The Varkin leaned its massive head against Jake's shoulder, a gesture so unexpected that even Jake was momentarily stunned. The crowd erupted into cheers, but Jake's mind was racing. The creature's behavior wasn't just submission, it was trust. The Zalorian leader turned to one of their advisors, their voice low but audible to those nearby. "How is this possible? The Varkin has never shown this behavior, even among our own." The advisor hesitated before replying. "Perhaps the human has discovered something we overlooked. Their species is known for their unique connections with animals." The leader turned back to Jake. "Human, you have intrigued us. We must understand how you have done this. Come aboard our vessel and explain." Jake hesitated. He glanced at the Varkin, whose glowing eyes seemed to soften. I'll come, he said, but only if the Varkin comes with me. The crowd gasped again, and the Zolorians exchanged murmurs. The leader raised a hand, silencing their advisors. Very well. If you can control it, you may bring it aboard. Jake nodded, his heart pounding. He turned back to the creature, speaking softly. All right, big guy. Let's go see what your creators have to say. The Varkin rose, towering over Jake but standing docile. Together, they began walking toward the Zolorian ship. The crowd parted like water, whispers of awe and fear trailing them. As they ascended the ramp into the alien vessel, Jake felt the weight of the moment. He wasn't just stepping into the unknown, he was representing all of humanity. Inside, the Zolorian ship was a marvel of engineering. The walls shimmered with an iridescent sheen, and the air hummed with a subtle energy. Jake was escorted to a vast chamber, where the Zolorian leader waited. The Varkin stayed close by his side, its presence a silent challenge to the alien's assumptions. The leader observed Jake for a long moment before speaking. You have changed the narrative of this day, human. Tell us how you achieved what we thought impossible. Jake took a deep breath. It's not about control. It's about trust. You see this creature as a weapon, but I see it as a living being. I didn't force it to submit, I earned its respect. The Zolorians listened intently, their expressions unreadable. Jake continued. You've engineered an incredible creature, but you've treated it like a machine. That's why it responded to me. I treated it like it mattered. The room fell silent, the air heavy with the weight of Jake's words. The Zolorian leader finally spoke, their tone contemplative. Perhaps we have underestimated your kind. Jake looked down at the Varkin, its glowing eyes meeting his. Or maybe you just underestimated this incredible creature. The Zolorian leader inclined their head slightly, a gesture that might have been respect. Very well, human. Let us see where this newfound understanding takes us. Jake didn't know what would come next, but one thing was clear, the encounter had changed everything. The Zolorian ship glided silently above Earth's atmosphere, the sprawling vista of the planet visible through its translucent walls. Jake sat cross-legged on a platform surrounded by Zolorian scientists and dignitaries. The Varkin lay beside him, its massive body relaxed, one glowing eye half open as it occasionally glanced around the room. The Zolorians observed the scene with a mixture of fascination and unease. This creature, engineered for dominance and destruction, now lay peacefully next to a humanoid behavior none of them had ever witnessed. The Zolorian leader, adorned in a flowing robe of shimmering metallic threads, stepped forward. Human, they began, their voice resonating with a symphonic cadence, your actions have altered our perspective. The Varkin's reaction to you challenges everything we believed about its nature. We demand an explanation. Jake met their gaze, unflinching. You're not seeing an anomaly. You're seeing what happens when a creature is treated with understanding instead of fear. The Varkin isn't just a weapon, it's alive, intelligent, and capable of forming bonds. The Zolorian leader tilted their head, their glowing eyes narrowing. Bonds? Elaborate. Jake leaned forward, gesturing to the Varkin. In my studies of Earth's predators, I've seen behaviors that go beyond survival instincts, trust, loyalty, even affection. But those behaviors only emerge when you create an environment where the animal feels safe. When I approached the Varkin, I didn't see a monster. I saw a creature that was scared and defensive. I gave it a reason to trust me. The Zolorian leader considered his words. You implied that our methods are flawed. Jake nodded. You created a creature that could dominate, but you didn't consider what it needed to thrive. Your training focused on control through fear, but trust is a far stronger bond. Murmurs rippled through the Zolorian crowd. One scientist stepped forward, their voice tinged with skepticism. But the Varkin is designed for war. It is the product of our greatest genetic advancements. Its purpose is to obey and to destroy. You claim it can. Care? Jake gestured to the Varkin, which perked up slightly at the sound of his voice. Ask it yourself. Watch how it responds. The scientist hesitated, then slowly approached the creature. The Varkin growled softly, its glowing eyes narrowing. Jake placed a hand on its shoulder, murmuring soothing words. The growl ceased, and the Varkin's body relaxed again. Try treating it with respect, Jake said. Don't demand its submission. Offer it a choice. The scientist extended a trembling hand. The Varkin sniffed cautiously, its hot breath ruffling the scientist's robe. After a tense moment, it nudged their hand gently with its nose. The scientist stepped back, their face a mix of awe and disbelief. The Zolorian leader's voice cut through the silence. Fascinating. It appears we have much to learn from you, human. Jake stood, his confidence growing. And we have much to learn from you. This creature is a testament to your technological and genetic expertise. Imagine what we could accomplish if we combined your advancements with our understanding of animal behavior. The leader's metallic gaze softened. You suggest collaboration? Jake nodded. Yes. Instead of using the Varkin as a weapon, we could train them for other purposes: rescue missions, exploration, companionship. These creatures could become a bridge between our species. The idea seemed to ripple through the Zolorian assembly, sparking quiet discussions. The leader raised a hand for silence. Your proposal intrigues us, but it will require proof. Will you teach us your methods? Jake smiled. Gladly. Over the next several weeks, Jake worked closely with the Zolorian scientists. The process wasn't easy. The Zolorians struggled to adapt their rigid, efficiency-driven mindset to Jake's more empathetic approach. But progress was undeniable. Jake demonstrated techniques he had honed on Earth body language, vocal tone, and the importance of patience. He showed them how to read the Varkin's subtle signals, the flick of an ear, the shift of its weight, the softening of its glowing eyes. The Zolorians, for all their brilliance, were unaccustomed to these nuances, but their curiosity drove them to learn. The Varkin, which Jake had nicknamed Silver, became the centerpiece of their training sessions. It responded to commands not out of fear, but out of trust and willingness. Other Varkins, previously aggressive and unapproachable, began showing similar behaviors as Jake's methods were applied. The transformation didn't go unnoticed. News of the alliance between Earth and the Zolorians spread across the galaxy. Other alien species, once wary of the Zolorians' militaristic reputation, began reaching out, curious about this new approach. One evening, as Jake sat in the ship's observation chamber, the Zolorian leader joined him. They gazed out at the stars, their metallic robes reflecting the light of distant galaxies. You have given us more than a new perspective, human, the leader said. You have given us hope. Jake glanced at Silver, who was sprawled out beside him, snoring softly. The Varkins gave me hope, too. I thought I'd spend my life studying animals on Earth. I never imagined I'd be teaching aliens how to train their pets. The leader allowed a faint smile to cross their lips, a gesture so subtle it was almost imperceptible. Your methods have shown us a path forward, one where strength does not come from fear alone. Perhaps this is the beginning of a new era for us all. Jake nodded, the weight of the moment sinking in. The bond he had formed with Silver had not only changed the Zolorians, it had set the stage for something much bigger. The Varkins, once symbols of domination, were now symbols of unity. As the ship sailed through the stars, Jake couldn't help but wonder what other lessons lay ahead. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was truly making a difference, not just for humanity, but for the galaxy. And it all started with a simple act of trust. The Earth-Zolorian alliance was officially announced 6 months after Jake's first encounter with Silver. Broadcasts across the galaxy heralded it as a groundbreaking partnership, one that united the might of Zolorian technology with the human capacity for empathy and understanding. The Varkins, once feared as instruments of destruction, were now at the heart of this new era of cooperation. Jake found himself at the forefront of an interstellar initiative. His knowledge of animal behavior and his unique connection with the Varkans had made him an ambassador, not just for Earth, but for the principles of harmony and coexistence. His work would take him far beyond anything he had ever imagined. The first major project was the establishment of Haven Station, a sprawling orbital facility co-managed by humans and Zolorians. Designed as both a research center and a training hub, Haven Station became the epicenter of Varkan rehabilitation and training. Varkans were no longer bred for war. Instead, they were trained for roles that showcased their strength and intelligence in constructive ways. Jake stood on the observation deck of Haven Station, watching a group of humans and Zolorians work together in a training arena. A young Varkanate pup by its species standards was learning how to use its strength to move debris, a skill that would make it invaluable in disaster relief efforts. Silver stood at Jake's side, now a constant companion. Though still imposing in size and appearance, Silver had become a gentle giant, trusted by humans and Zolorians alike. The two of them had become symbols of the Alliance, appearing in broadcasts, at diplomatic summits, and even on holographic posters throughout the galaxy. The changes extended far beyond Haven Station. On Earth, Varkans were gradually integrated into society. Their extraordinary strength and intelligence made them ideal for tasks that ranged from heavy construction to search and rescue operations. Jake personally oversaw their introduction, ensuring that humans learned to approach them with the same respect and understanding he had shown Silver. In New York City, where it all began, Varkans became a common sight. One morning, Jake walked through Central Park, where children were playing with a pair of Varkans under the watchful eye of their handlers. The sight filled Jake with pride. These were no longer fearsome monsters, they were beloved members of a growing interstellar community. The galaxy, too, began to change. Other alien species, intrigued by the Earth-Zolorian partnership, reached out to form their own alliances. The Varkans became a universal symbol of peace, their transformation inspiring hope across countless worlds. One of the most unexpected outcomes came from the Zolorians themselves. Once a species defined by their militaristic tendencies, they began to embrace the values Jake had introduced. Their society shifted toward a more collaborative mindset, valuing empathy as much as efficiency. During one of their many discussions, the Zolorian leader confided in Jake. "Your actions have reshaped us, human. For centuries, we believed strength was the ultimate measure of a civilization. But you've shown us that strength lies in understanding, in forming bonds." Jake smiled. "It wasn't just me. Silver did most of the work." The leader's lips curled into a faint smile, an expression Jake had come to recognize as a sign of deep respect. "Then let us continue learning from Silver." The greatest test of the Alliance came in the form of a galactic crisis. A rogue asteroid, larger than any recorded in human history, was hurtling toward a densely populated moon. The combined efforts of several species were required to avert disaster, and the Varkans played a pivotal role. Jake and Silver led a team of trained Varkans into the asteroid's hazardous terrain. Their mission was to stabilize critical equipment that would redirect the asteroid's path. The operation was dangerous, requiring split-second decisions and absolute trust between humans, Zolorians, and Varkans. Silver's strength and agility proved indispensable, and the bond between him and Jake became the foundation of the mission's success. When the asteroid was finally redirected, saving millions of lives, the galaxy celebrated not just the victory, but the unity that made it possible. Years later, Jake found himself back on Earth, standing in the very spot in Central Park where he had first encountered Silver. The park was bustling with life, Varkans mingling seamlessly with humans. Nearby, a plaque commemorated the day the Zolorians arrived and the moment that changed everything. Jake knelt beside Silver, now graying around the edges but still as regal as ever. "We've come a long way, haven't we, buddy?" Silver huffed softly, leaning into Jake's touch. For a moment, they simply sat together, the noise of the park fading into the background. As Jake looked up at the sky, A Zolorian ship streaked across the horizon, a reminder of how far they had come. He smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. Humanity and the Zolorians had shown the galaxy what was possible when fear gave way to understanding, when bonds were forged instead of broken. The Varkans, once symbols of domination, were now symbols of hope. And Jake, the biologist who had dared to approach the deadliest creature in the galaxy, had found his place among the stars.